you're 50 years old, you suddenly had a heart attack. That problem with that heart didn't just start. There were symptoms along the way. Like you say, you track blood work. There's a lot of components that go into that, but we have to be able to bring this to consumers to easily understand, easily help them understand their own strengths and weaknesses so they're in charge of their health. But we've got to give them the right tools and the right information that they can understand it. You don't have to be a geneticist, to understand the simplicity of what we're doing. You just have to implement certain things in life, and to understand what you've got to do simply and easily is what creates that health span aspect.
This is the Longevity Loop podcast, and I'm your host, Brent Wallace. In every episode, I bring you the leading voices in longevity, plus my own insights to put the world's best strategies directly into your hands, making elite longevity strategies accessible to everyone, regardless of your background. So let's jump into the loop starting right now. All right, welcome to the Longevity Loop podcast. Today, we're talking about personalized nutrition, which, obviously our whole theme here is longevity nutrition and getting the best you can out of the life we're given. And so with nutrigenomics and really, and we'll get into this, but it's really cool because guesswork is one of the banes of my existence with longevity. And there's so much stuff that's guessing, whether you're playing with, substances or whatever, that are just things that I think they're working and my blood tests show they're working, but it's still a lot of guessing, right? And so today we're going to really talk about taking the guessing out of nutrition and nutrigenomics and really stop guessing your way through your supplement stacks. So just a really quick disclaimer before we totally jump in. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is a conversation between two professionals, two friends, and it's just for education, entertainment, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas. But any ideas that you might have from this podcast, make sure to clear it with your doc. It's a qualified practitioner in your world is super important to talk to and really let them know what you're doing, just because safety is the number one thing and we really value your safety. So with that said, taking all that off the table, we're going to be talking about personalized nutrition and health optimization, and it's not diagnosing, curing, or treating any disease. So just a little bit of back history, what got me really curious about this conversation we're about to have, it's really simple. I've been using a custom SNP formulation for the last few months, and 4 months to be exact, and I'm just about to go on my 5th month, and it's dramatically simplified my routine, which is probably the coolest thing. Other than the health benefits that I'll just get into in just a second here, but just having like one can of vitamins to go to instead of, I don't know, I probably had 30 or 40 bottles that I kind of pushed to the side since starting this. So that was cool, saving just time, if nothing else. And then I've been feeling really great. And so I just had a blood test that I was waiting to take, and I had improved blood markers in a few key areas I've been working on for years, let's say. But again, going back to the thing, this is an N of 1 study. This is me, how it affected me. But I think that, the other people would, I'm imagining they would also get the results. And Kim Ressler, who's on the podcast today, who is my guest, we'll clearly get into that. So how should smart people think about genes, nutrition, and personalization without getting lost in the hype? And there's a lot of hype around supplements, right? So Kim, with that said, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Brent. It's so great to be here. And I love to hear your story and your improvements, because we do see that when we are going to the root of an individual. So, boy, that was a big question, though. Can you repeat it?
We can take it bite by bite size. We can dive into like what my experience was, but just really more than anything, just starting out with the high level. What problem are you trying to solve that the average supplement, aisle or online place just completely fails?
Yeah, no, I think that is a great place is to start. In general, when you even go to the store or you go and you buy a $30 or $40 blender, you get an owner's manual, right? You get an owner's manual and you know how to use it. When we are born, we don't have an owner's manual. We don't understand that even though you and I are 99% alike, how we age and we're not just what we eat, we're what we absorb and utilize, and that each of us are different. And so, yes, we have the philosophy of test, don't guess, understanding your genetic component of what your body can actually do and keeping it simple. And that's, I mean, keeping it simple and applicable to you that you can actually implement these small shifts and changes easily. So, I mean, I know that there was a lot of questions in one, but ultimately, genetics with what SNP Nutrigenomics does is it's not about giving you polygenic risk scores and tell you propensity to develop diseases. Nutrigenomics comes in to tell you, hey, there's these actionable genes that we can do something about, whether they're related to mood, cognitive function, brain, inflammation, immune resilience, et cetera, that we can give very specific key nutrients to optimize when we don't have the right, we might not the right, we don't have the optimal variant, in other words. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually when we first were talking, I believe I was getting an IV drip and you were sitting on a PEMF table.
Yeah.
And this was at the HealthSpan event in LA that I don't know Elias's last name, but anyway, great event. So for anyone looking for longevity events, that's one of the best ones. Great excuse to come to LA. But yeah, like that totally makes sense. You know, like you were sharing with me that, you know, just the different versions of a B vitamin, you know, we're talking, you know, just shortly about like methylation of vitamins and stuff. And you're showing me that it's actually, that is good for some people. Then it doesn't really matter because other people actually absorb the other variant more. And, you know, and that was kind of the start of our conversation, at least from what I recall.
No, yeah, absolutely. We're all different. And there's so much noise and so much hype and so much dart throwing out there trying to figure out what's going to work. Let's start with your body. Let's see. I'm not, like I said, let's see what you need in the formats you need it with the right cofactors so we can stop this madness, absolute madness of, oh, Tom told me this. I saw a TikTok on this. I mean, you know, and suddenly you're looking at, like you said, 20, 30 bottles. That's absolute fatigue, costly. And do you actually need them? Interesting that you say that. I was just on with a provider a couple days ago, and she had been overdosing or mega dosing. I wouldn't say overdosing, mega dosing a product that is highly, you know, it's a longevity product. And she did blood work recently and she sees it is like so out of range, like it's way too much for her body. So we can cause toxicity as well and create the opposite effect when we're trying to throw things at, I mean, when we don't need to be. So
yeah, I mean, it begs the question here is like, why are there so many smart, health conscious people out there that just we're still guessing when it comes to supplements, right? I mean, you do. It's like it's funny. I have like an aunt that calls me and she's like, I heard on, you know, CNN that fish oil is good to take, you know, and I feel like that's still even like those of us who are even very educated in the subject of health and, you know, diets and longevity and all the whole thing, it's still like, oh, Brian Johnson takes, you know, like sulforaphane, let's go, you know, and all these things that you end up, you know, really guessing on. And, you know, and so why do you think that is, that people are just guessing? Is it just they don't know that a product like yours exists, or is it
I think that's
something else? Like,
I think that's a big part of it, but I think we are truly, as a society, we are so trained to pill for an ill, right? So you've got a headache, you take an Advil, it gets rid of it, or whatever you take for it, right? That's what we're trained for. We've got this, and I see my husband, even though I work in this arena, I see him every once in a while. He's like, oh, this is supposed to be good for this. I mean, and he'll ask me that. We've got to start, we have to move with personalization. We have to move to the individual. And we know, and where this gets complicated and confusing, there's a lot of great DNA testing companies out there, right? And they'll tell you if you've got this gene, do this. But then you look at the next gene and it says, well, if you have this gene, don't do what it said to do on the last gene. So it's complicated, it's confusing, it's overwhelming. And the cost to decode all of this can become overwhelming. It's a big reason why I started SNP Nutrigenomics, is to simply be able to use science, evident, actual science, to tell me based on these genetic variants what has been proven, whether it's plant-based nutrition or, vitamins, minerals, micronutrients in the right format, in the right dose, with the right cofactors, that I can put it all together for an individual simply and easily as far as a foundational product. But I think that is, and that's not a shame because to anybody about the pill for an ill, because truly, Brent, if you woke up with a problem tomorrow and you wanted it fixed, we want it fixed now. But some, it's just like health. We have to look at our health as a marathon, not a sprint. It's not an event. And I saw a recent post that was talking about you're 50 years old, you suddenly had a heart attack. That problem with that heart didn't just start. There were symptoms along the way. Like you say, you track blood work. There's a lot of components that go into that, but we have to be able to bring this to consumers to easily understand, easily help them understand their own strengths and weaknesses so that they can they're in charge of their health, but we've got to give them the right tools and the right information that they can understand it. Because, you don't have to be a geneticist, to understand the simplicity of what we're doing. You just have to implement certain things in life, and to understand what you've got to do simply and easily is what creates that health span aspect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. The one thing that comes to mind is like when people hear DNA-based nutrition, right? And I can imagine people immediately misunderstand what it is, right? Because it is something that's fairly complex, or sounds complex at least.
It is.
And it is complex on obviously a certain level, but also that's also the beauty of it, is that it kind of takes away questions, I would say, because it is DNA based. So one question, like, let's just bring it back a notch, maybe. What does nutrigenomics actually mean, just in like plain English? Because even someone like me who reads a lot of literature, sometimes, I understand what it is, but how would you explain it?
Okay, so nutrigenomics is the study of understanding your genetics and the exact foods or nutrition that, when you have genetic variances or weaknesses or mutations, so it's the study of that food based on those variants that can ultimately offset or fill in the gap. In other words, when you've got a variant on a gene, and so give it an example, a vitamin D receptor. So some of us, our vitamin D impacts over 6,000 biochemical pathways in the body, right? Low vitamin D is related to all-cause mortality, right? So next, if you have vitamin D receptor markers if you've got genetic variants on there, making it, your body absorbs it differently. It can't take it from the sun and turn it into what it needs. And then the body can't, it walks through this whole process, right? And being able to do, I've got those markers. I'm that person, and a lot of people are, that I have to supplement with vitamin D at a very specific level to keep my numbers in a range, in a range for me that is good. Right? Like, everybody work with your provider on what that range is, because it might be different from one doctor to the next. But, and when I get that vitamin D and I keep it at that level, but what do I see? And I know I'm starting to span off on this, but knowing my genetic markers and applying the vitamin D, my immune resilience is better. My mood is better. On and on and on. So does that make sense what nutrigenomics is? It's literally the study of nutrition based on your own genetics.
Yep. So everything's specific. And actually, that was one thing too that I stopped, just taking back a step to what I've been taking from what you've been providing, is my vitamin D levels have stayed exactly the same, even though I stopped taking the whatever 10,000 IUs or 5,000 IUs a day. And I attribute that to likely is it just getting absorbed better through just the different pathways. And there's so many things that, you look at the nutrition label, like I wish I had it here, but it's just like boom, boom, boom. It's like the most complex or comprehensive multivitamin that you've ever seen as far as, like just all the ingredients in it. And that's the really cool thing is that, every value of the measured supplement is just for me, and that's the one thing, I'm sure we'll get into the whole, how all this works, but like from the first step that you get the DNA kit in the mail, do your swabs, send the DNA so you get your full genome back, and then all the recommendations and all the education that you give. I mean, it's just a really cool system overall. And then you get the vitamins on top of that. So it's not only just the vitamins, but you also get that whole preview into your genome, and if you haven't had that done, it's a great place to start. What better place to start than to get that and then actually get something that is, working for you on it instead of just like, hey, you should probably eat more fish, or you have a predispensity for XYZ. It's like, it's just real nice to actually have something physical that you're getting from that genetics test that, y'all send out.
Well, it just tells you where to focus too. We're aging, right? And hey, are you an overinflamer? And things to pay attention to. And so then it's beyond that, because nutrition is just one spoke in that wheel, right? I mean, it's that one spoke but let's simplify that. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So if someone is skeptical about this, it's like, what? This sounds like maybe it sounds too sci-fi. I don't know. What's the strongest case about caring about this at all, right? Because with the longevity, as you and I both know, it's full of, the quote unquote snake oil salesman. And you're a lot of times you're left, is this really going to help, or is this going to hurt, or is it going to be neutral? Like, what is it? So if someone's coming into this conversation, listening to us speak now and skeptical about this, I mean, I think you've already laid out a pretty strong case, but what could you say in addition that would make this even a stronger case about someone caring about this?
Well, if you are interested in how you're aging and you want to feel your best, et cetera, I mean, you've got to start with you. I mean, you absolutely, to understand, hey, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And again, we don't do full genome testing. We are interested in what we call Nutrigenomics hits actionable genes. Okay. So just to explain that. So I can't take you and make you're 5'3" and make you 6'4". We can't change that. But predisposed to different heart things, and heart health is so important, and inflammation, those types of things. We can see those are what we call highly actionable, and that nutrigenomic approach can ultimately offset or optimize the function of the gene. So, but I think the thing is if you're feeling skeptical, everything we do is rooted in science. And it's based on lots of studies, over 600 and some odd 50 studies of why we dose the way we do, and based per gene. And we're very transparent to give you all the science based on exactly why we do what we do. It's it's the ongoing conversation that I'll have with somebody, and they're like, oh, you've got this ingredient in there, and I take that ingredient, but I take 10 times the amount. Is that actually going to benefit me? If you have a specific condition and you're working with your provider on a specific thing, yeah, you may need to mega dose, but the body over time, it doesn't need to be mega. The microdosing works. I'm just saying, and the body knows what to do with it, and it's now given it. So if you are skeptical, I say, look at it, check it out. It's coming. We ultimately want to be able to reduce all of these, these routines, at least foundationally. Let's cover an individual's body at a foundational level. And then if you need to do a couple of other things, yeah, I mean, try it. Before and after blood work, just kind of like what you did. because you do your blood work every 4 months. And you can actually see the improvement. Nutri-Eval, those types of things as well can really show it. That's what and just how you feel. I wear an Aura ring, and a lot of people have told me, I already thought I had my supplement routine dialed in, but now that I've gotten on the customized, I'm watching my sleep scores. They just keep improving. There's little shifts that you may not see in blood work, but you feel in your life, and it's better recovery. It's better this, it's, that type of thing. So I hope that answers on the skepticism, but I mean, we need to start with us. I do believe that we will become to the day and age that we will laugh about going into a pharmacy and just picking things off the shelf that we don't know why we're picking them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's literally a game of vitamin roulette. It feels like sometimes. And, yeah, you just touched on something, just a few minutes back, but, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so it's not necessarily, well, like we said, it's not a cure for anything. This is giving you long-term nutritional support based on what your individual is. And
That is
so
correct.
that's just, and that's what it is. It's like if you're looking for, miracle results. And, like I said at the outset, like I had some improved biomarkers of 4 months. And then as I continue, I expect that other things can continue to normalize out. I have really good blood work in general, but there's always things that you can always optimize and tweak. And that's the thing that, I'll be continuing to look at during my next blood test, is figure in another 4 months is like to say, okay, these things are leveling out, or this number is continuing to go down, or, and those things. And that's the real proof there that you have to have the blood work or something to show that it's like, okay, here's a before and here's an after shot. And as I came into it before I was taking that, is like, okay, this is day one that after my previous blood test. And then I started on just the day I got that blood test. I got that blood test, and then, we had it, and then it went 4 months, and then I got retested, and then that's when I got my results that were, very positive.
Right. Right. Sorry about that.
All good. All good. I mean, I feel like sometimes I put my phone on silent and focus mode, and it still rings, and you're like, what is going on?
And I had it on silent. I apologize.
Yeah, no, all good. So, okay, so let's get back into this. That was kind of the macro case that you laid out. Now, I would like to know about why and how you've got so obsessed with this. This is really something that you had your own health journey, from what I remember. What was happening in your health that made you start really questioning this, the guessing game of the normal wellness playbook that we all are so familiar with?
So I am. I'm a mom to 4 kids, right? And I was pregnant with my last daughter, and they saw something interesting in my blood work, and off I went to a specialist, and et cetera. But it was after the delivery, it was symptom by symptom started appearing, and nobody could tell me what was going on. So, like so many people, and health is really, I mean, it's personal, and cover on the outside, make it look like I feel great, but inside I feel like I'm dying, and not dying, but I don't feel well, and I never felt well. And it was the terrible sleep, and I couldn't sleep through the night, and waking up in the middle of the night, and the total constant brain spin, and then the chronic fatigue, and the symptoms kept compounding. I was looking for answers. I was looking for answers for 11 years.
God.
And so if you can think about this, it was like year by year a new symptom. Then we went to the constant bloating and the chronic constipation, and I mean I can keep going, right? I can then in early 40s the perimenopause. I'm like, seriously? Hot flashes and night sweats out of control, and I'm like, and they're going, oh, you need bioidenticals, and I mean, everybody had their thing, but nobody was starting with me, and nobody was listening to me. At one point, I was on almost $400 a month in adrenal fatigue supplements. I had a powder, a liquids, and pills, and I was going, And I mean, you name it, I was seeing this professional, that professional. I was doing PEMF 5 days a week. I mean, I was going in and doing all these treatments. I wanted to feel good, and I didn't want to just have this outside layer. I wanted to feel good, and I was like, this cannot. It was like the light switches kept turning off, and then the constant burning everywhere in my body. I was just like, what is going on? This can't be. So I understood. I originally learned about nutrigenomics through a very dear friend. Her son had been diagnosed with ADHD, and she said, I think it's a gene. And I watched her spend $10,000 in 9 months mapping the methylation pathway. And they literally were addressing one gene. And my husband and I were getting ready to start that whole process. It's time consuming, it's expensive. And a couple days later, again, I did not create the technology that I work with. This technology, I feel, was gifted to me to take to the world. And where we could easily and simply see all of these actionable genes, these heavy hitting ones that impact us in aging and adult onset disease. And we could simply custom formulate for them. And I was like, this is just amazing. I have to try this. And at first, I thought it was a placebo effect when I first got on the product, because it was, the better energy, the better sleep, the better digestion. It was and slowly, one by one by one, and I really started hardcore tracking blood work and you name every kind of test. And that's how I started working with this. And that's how I dove in. But unbeknownst to me, I didn't even find out till a couple of years later. I do have an autoimmune. I keep it sleeping. I'm pharmaceutical free and 54 years old. I've made it through menopause just fine, and I haven't had any of those. I'm just telling you, all of this everything is interconnected. And when you start to look at my blood work now and see where I'm at, and it's not to say that everything's always perfect. I had a mold exposure a few months ago, and that drove a couple of my numbers up. And that's how we kind of found that we had mold, and then started the testing and everything else, right? So, but understanding my own genetics, where my baseline should be, and as I age, it puts me in the driver's seat, right? So, but
Yeah.
I just felt, and I do feel, my technology has been around a long time. It was for your rich and your famous and your elites, and they were doing all this mapping, and then these complex supplement routines. I had a girlfriend that was on over 70 supplements a day, some before breakfast, some with, some after. Regardless, some people may have a very extreme condition, and you have to do some different things. I'm not going to be your specific protocol for one thing or the next, but I'm coming in to hit the foundation. When we go to that DNA level and have healthier cells, it leads to healthier tissues, which lead to healthier organs. It's overall health. So that's what's so powerful about what we're doing, is we're just removing all of that. We're removing that because we're starting with you.
So what was that transition like? So you had this light bulb moment that your friend, showed you this technology. What was that transition like where you chose to create a company and stop just focusing on your personal health rabbit hole, so to speak? It's like you're like, okay, I need like the light bulb moment of, I need to bring this to the masses.
Well, I ended up working with the technology to a different capacity to begin with, in a different capacity. But what I started doing is I started taking the technology and the science, and I would take it to every single doctor that I know. And I would say, hey, you're a cardiologist. Would you look at this? And would you tell me, is this what you would do if somebody was struggling in this area, this area, this area? And it just kept coming back. Oh, that's exactly what I would do. Da 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 da. And I was just like, wow. And then I started talking to geneticists that would look at it, that actually did this genetic mapping, and they would help design somebody's supplement routine. And they would literally look at me and they'd say, wow, that is the most complex formula I've ever seen. Yeah. I had one geneticist one time look at me and she said, I don't think you understand what you have your hands on. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, I think I do. And she says, no. She goes, I really believe that what you have your hands on could literally shift the trajectory of healthcare. And she said, I think you're at least 95% correct. And she said, and it's not that you're incorrect, but that other 5% are those people that are going to need extra support, or they're going to need that extra this or that. And I was like, so in 2022, I launched SNP. Yeah. We keep, science progresses, we're going to progress. We just want to keep moving the needle, making people aware that this is out there, and educating them to be in their own driver's seat. I think so many people feel like their doctor's in charge of their health. And in reality, I'd like to educate people that you are in the driver's seat, to push that forward. But we've got to educate you on your strengths and weaknesses so that it's simple and easy for you to make the choices that you make.
100%. I mean, I feel like there is a shift. And again, I'm a little probably blinded by it because I'm so enwrapped in the industry, with like my longevity clinic marketing business that I'm working with longevity clinics all the time. And so I think sometimes I'm like, wow, this is like a revolution that everyone's getting turned on to this, but it's still a fairly small part of the population. But this is so great that, like as people get turned on to this, and like you said, like, I feel that that's still the overall sentiment that most people feel, is like their doctor is in control of their health outcomes. And it's like, no, it's completely flipped. Like, when you see, we've heard this so many times, but the average doctor, your normal, primary care physician, knows less about nutrition than I forget whatever the stat is, but it's alarmingly low. And that's the people that we're putting all this trust into, and well-deserved in some arenas, but in other, it's like, it's really up to us to really take this on as ourselves. And I think that's with the growth of longevity doctors and even functional health providers and even naturopaths that, they've been around for so long. It's just the people that are really looking for an alternate way to care for self, because they're realizing they're not really getting that from their PCP.
Right.
So when we look at this genetics piece through a longevity lens, what would be the main buckets that someone should understand?
When we look at it from a longevity, well, I mean, you mean in specific areas? I mean, maybe reframe the question.
Yeah. So like the main areas that we want, I mean, I consider, and we touch on this, like sleep is a main bucket. Obviously nutrition, exercise,
Yep.
emotional health. I would say those are probably the 4 main buckets. So we're looking at genetics. Obviously, that's a component of longevity, right? Longevity, we have to know a lot about our genetics, and it's given us so many tools, such as yours, to look at. So the main buckets that people should really be understanding to look after, I mean, and I think you've already answered this, but basically what you're doing, it's essentially, I mean, 2 of the main buckets for sure, right? I mean, like I would say the sleep component, because it's helping the sleep and it's also helping with the nutrition, and it's supporting physical output. And then also likely emotional and mental support as well, right? Because, the human body is an orchestra of, different things going on. And once one thing is getting really covered well, then it's like, okay, these other things are also going to be supported through this, like, skin and eyesight and, just so many things.
Yeah, I know where you're going. Okay, yes. So that's with so many, everybody's different, right? And everybody's dealing with different things. I think that when you talk about buckets, you said mood. And mood is highly related to some of these genes. Cognitive function, detox, inflammation, body mass index. I mean, your weight even. There's so many things, but as you said, nutrition's one spoke, right? It's one spoke, but we need to make sure that it's playing with all of the other things. Are you getting the good, clean water, the fresh air that is non-polluted? I mean, these are all the little spokes. That's one thing about genetics that I can see. Okay, you are that. Let's go to situation. You see a 103-year-old lady or a 100-year-old woman sitting on a park bench smoking a cigarette, right? And she doesn't have a problem. But the lady that's sitting next to her just smells that cigarette smoke, or it breathes it like from in passing, and it literally, she develops a sinus infection. Why? Those are genetics. One person's propensities versus another one, and understanding that and how your body deals with it. So it's kind of all of it, if that makes sense. But yeah, as you said,
Yeah.
everything works in an orchestra. So if you're feeling better, if you're sleeping better, your body's getting better recovery. It's easier to lose weight. It's you've got more energy during the day. I mean, they all go. Everything just goes hand in hand and hand in hand.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like you mentioned that. I forget some really old school guy that smoked and you lived to like 101 and he's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and just drink and whatever because, this guy did it. And you're like, no, this is absolutely the wrong way to look at that, just because they did it. They just had a specific genetic predisposition to like, okay, like they can smoke cigars their whole life and not affect them. Or
Right.
if they didn't smoke, maybe they lived to, I mean, who knows what.
Right. Well, it's how their body literally takes those epoxides and is either able to get rid of them, where that what next person just smelling and breathing in that cigarette smoke, or forest fire. Sorry, we'll go to forest fire versus cigarette smoking. But one person is, I mean, not that it could that fire in a community could deeply impact anybody, but where one person might not have the reaction that the next one does, that's where genetics come in and tell us how is that gene function, and does it have that weakness that it needs that support. So but it starts lining up with pretty much all systems of the body, all the way through. So that's how it really impacts longevity. I mean, heart health is still the number one killer, and there's a lot of genes that impact heart health and inflammation and, high homocysteine levels and your propensities, and we can see that. Um, they say that coronary artery disease is 50% genetic and 50% lifestyle. Okay, well, if we know that and we can make some small shifts and edits, because we know 70 some odd 80% of the population takes supplementation, we can't get the nutrients that we need through our food anymore. But let's just simplify it, and let's offset and optimize, because if that's the case, they say that if you know you have these variants and you come in to optimize younger, just like you didn't get that heart attack at 50, that heart attack started building younger, or that it was coming up to building that. We can live, they say we can live up to 20 years longer, healthier, and something worth living, not sitting, not being able to do anything, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just encapsulating the health span thing, right? I mean, there's so many. I had a podcast guest a couple episodes ago, and what she talked about was, kind of the four different stages of the longevity people. The people that want to, upload their consciousness to the computer, the cloud, and then kind of down at the bottom, there's, someone who I would consider being is that, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind living longer, but what I'm trying to optimize now is my health span, right? I want to be healthy as long as I can. And, if I die at 100 or 80 or whatever, so be it. But I don't want those last years of life to be anything that I'm going to suffer through. Like still want to be, riding bikes with my son and swimming and surfing and doing all the things I love to do. And so really like focusing, like you said, on that, I would say that's health span that you just talked about. It's like living healthier years, not necessarily longer years, because those longer years, I mean, who knows what those are, but yeah, just like focusing on that. So the one thing that you also mentioned that brought something up is, you've heard the expression, the genes load the gun, but the lifestyle pulls the trigger. What do you think that saying gets right, and what does it miss?
No, I think that saying is so right. I mean, it is your lifestyle. And like I said, nutrition is one key component, right? So we know our genetic weaknesses, and we give them the nutrition they need to optimize them. But after that, I mean, it is our lifestyle, and it is the small daily habits, and it is the consistent daily habits that hey, it's just like the person that wants to go, that says, hey, New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. And they want to eliminate absolutely everything from their diet and just do this hardcore clean diet. And I'm sorry, let's be real. We love food. Food brings us happiness. And
Chocolate
if you,
especially.
yeah, dark chocolate, organic dark chocolate. But so many people fail, and it's not to be, you're not to be shamed for failing. It's that you're taught all or nothing. You're taught, oh, you've got to do, no. So this is great that we're talking about this because this is kind of my journey this year. I started doing some things, and it's more about talking about um, incorporating small little edits and changes where they become habits in your lifestyle. So, December 25th is the last day I had a drop of alcohol. Okay. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So that was week one. That wasn't a problem at all. I wasn't going, oh, I need that. Week two, I started focusing on removing any of the processed foods that I might go to grab on occasion. Not all the time, but as a snack. Hey, let's really get away from some of this. Week three was let's pull out dairy as a snack because that was something I was doing all the time, right? And it's not that I'm not going to allow myself to have it. I love cheese,
Oh yeah.
but let's stop the habit of going to grab 3 cheese slices. Instead, let's replace it with something else. And then week 4, I started moving into it's time to I really, again, some habits take longer. They say 30 days to make a habit. I'm coming up on 80 days. I haven't made a lot of other edits and changes except for I started moving in. I need to move my body more. And so I'm literally tracking my body movement now. Like, if that makes sense, it's small little steps to create habits that will bring me better health outcomes. Does that make sense? And
Oh
I think
yeah.
and anybody like that's why I tell people you suddenly want this big change. Doesn't work that way. Make one little change. Oh, watch the amount of water you're drinking. Hey, you don't drink enough water, your body needs the water, whatever. I mean, little things make big, big, big impact if they're done consistently.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 100%. Like I remember, just, I mean, everything that you just said was like, oh, that's cool. I should stop eating as much dairy because I love my cottage cheese. It's like the protein snack, and I'm like, let's go. But the drinking thing, I mean, like you said, all those things that you mentioned, the activity, less processed food, and especially the drinking. I stopped drinking on the 1st, and usually I try to do a month to 3 months. This time around, I'm doing 3 months, but I think I'm just going to keep on coasting because I just recently read this data about it takes 6 months for your brain to completely recover from the no alcohol thing, and maybe it's different in different people,
Right.
but I was just like, that's a pretty interesting thing. And then after that, I read another article that talked about the people that say, well, I only drink on the weekends. And what they were talking about in their research is that the weekend thing is just long enough to kind of let your body reset, just to like throw it into chaos again, and I'm like, oh man, that's true. You know, the hardest thing for me with drinking personally was like that first week of like, oh, I just want something like kind of, I love light beer, and especially, living in Texas and now living in Arizona, nothing tastes quite as good as, a cold, sparkly beverage. And so always like reaching for those things. But, luckily there's such great non-alcoholic options out there now. But then kind of getting over that hump, and again, it's so hard to really put the data, when you're changing so many things, it's like, but overall, like at the end of the day, is like my blood work shows that it's great. My, like I have the Whoop and the Apple Watch that both give me great data. All that stuff is improving and getting better. And so it's like, again, it's just all these things support each other. And then I feel like that just builds momentum, and it's like a big snowball effect that the more you add to that, you're just going to feel like a rock star.
It's just small, but it's small little steps. I didn't go on a drastic diet. I'm not saying I cannot not eat cheese. I'm going to eat cheese. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. My whole point of bringing that up is I was just cutting. I'm not going to it every day as that snack, more of it, more of it. Now, it's not to say if I'm going to have a burger or a cheeseburger, I'll still have a cheeseburger. I just am not. I'm just being aware is what I am, and small little shifts so that I make that, oh, I'll pick up a piece of fruit or have another type of a protein snack, in lieu of that cheese, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've read any of those books like BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits or James Clear Atomic Habits, but that's again rooted in the science. Is like, don't make these big changes because you can't stick to it. It's not sustainable. Just stick to that one thing. It's like, it's like I have my water here, and the one thing that I started to add, I was doing greens drink forever, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm gonna quit that greens drink because one is expensive, and so now I just put a pinch of salt and a squeeze of lemon, and that's like my water. So that's my upgraded water, and that's I guess a habit, but it tastes great. I know it's good for me. It rehydrates me with the right things, gives me some vitamin C. It's like all the things. So,
But see, you've made that a habit, right? You've made it a
yeah,
habit. I mean, and so when you do that and you're doing it consistently, you're like, oh, that pinch of salt and a little bit of lemon. Same thing here. I mean, that's what I do. But that's become habit. So now we just stack another little habit. Whether, hey, I just got that notice. I need that. I need to. I'm going to take a break and go walk for 15 minutes, just for 15 minutes. I'm not going to go to the gym one time and think I'm going to have these big muscles, right?
yeah,
I mean, it's the small steps that will lead to the bigger steps. And yeah, when you feel better, you do better, and it all just keeps compounding. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just like stacking those things, and again, just kind of drawing it back to your product. It's like your product is. I feel like one of the things about supplements, and I know this is true with my wife and with a lot of friends, they forget to take them, or there's too many, or they don't know when to take what, where. Is this the morning thing? Should I take? And then you hear these things online is like, don't take this in the morning because your cortisol levels, or don't take this at night because it's too, like all the, things you hear. And, speaking about just the repeatable process is like just having one thing, which is the SNP Nutrigenomic, it's just that having that customizable thing. It's just like,
there,
okay, it's
that.
easy. Yeah. Yeah. The code simple. Yeah. So, I mean, it's so simple and easy. So like if you are trying to build a supplement stack or something like that, this is like one of the best ways also just to make sure you're redoing it, because there's only one thing to take. And I think we briefly talked about that. The only thing I added on top of this, so I put all my other vitamins supplements away, and I just added a high EPA omega-3. That's the one thing I still was doing the 3 grams of that a day, in addition to that. And I think you said you were doing the what's the
Just so my daily go-to stack, no matter what, is my customized, and I just started on fatty 15 because
fatty
I
15?
I
Yeah.
want to had my blood work done in January, and I'm going to consistently take that until my next blood work. And yeah, but that's my stack. Yeah,
Yeah.
those two
Yeah.
it's two things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly simple. So as far as like follow through and creating a routine, I mean that's an extremely helpful way to do that, and it's also cost efficient too. I mean, I was just like doing the quick math. Is like I was saving probably about $80 a month. But just kind of rough estimates there. When I kind of looked through my whole vitamin buying history and was like, okay, this is about $80 a month I'm saving on all of this. So walk me through the entire process here, from the moment someone might hear this or just get curious somewhere else. What would happen next in this process when, somebody actually receives, like in terms of insights, guidance, next steps, like where should they go? How should they get some help there with, if they're interested in working with SNP, or,
So
just like a supplement stack in general, I mean, I think we've left out a pretty good argument, not just to go like, like just blindly going and, yeah, I've heard this is, great, because, you really do make this process feel a lot more empowering instead of overwhelming. And I think that's what you are going for. But, it was like, if someone's curious about this, what's the next steps here?
well, go to our website and check it out, snipnutrition.com. And if not, go to our YouTube. Go to SNP Nutrigenomics on YouTube, and listen to both consumers as well as providers that are using our testing in their clinics to learn, right? And I think this is one thing. People, we get fixated on a very specific issue and we don't look at outside of. And that is one beautiful thing SNP covers, and supports mood and supports immune and supports inflammation and supports methylation and heart health and, all of these different areas. And you're going, wait, could that really be? Yes, it really is, but you're going to have your weaknesses in it. So the next thing would be, hey, you decide you're interested and you want to take that step. Get your genetic test done. Totally HIPAA compliant. We're not here to sell your data. It's a simple at-home cheek swab. We do 2 cheek swabs. We are partnered with a level 5 lab, which means they're CLIA certified, CAP accredited. We're not looking to collect data, but it's a simple at-home cheek swab, and you send it in. Within 3 weeks, your results will be delivered into a private password-protected portal, which you get access to right when you register your kit or you purchase one. And then I'm about education. And what you'll see in that portal is tons of education. We do live education every month and learn more. Where bone health might be important to me right now, it's not really on your radar. There's all kinds of recordings about different things and things that you may need to look at or ask from your provider. We want to guide. I'll give you is very specific, and I'm sorry, and I kind of go on tangents, but we were working with a lady and she got on the customize and she's telling me she couldn't take it. Now, she was having a problem with it. Well, she wasn't really transparent about everything else she was doing, but she had reached out to me and I said, let's look at your reports. And we dove in and I can see all of these detox markers. And at the end, and so I said, let's get into the detox report and how this could be impacting you in general. And by the time we got to the end of it, we have all these. Consider requesting these labs from your wellness provider. And we went through them and she goes, I've already done heavy metal testing and I didn't have a problem with glyphosates, but mold. She goes, in 19 years, nobody's ever tested me for mold. So what we were able to do for her when I was working with her is she was like, nobody's ever said that. She went and she got mold testing and guess what? That was her problem. I'm not going to be her mold protocol, but you know what? Now she's on her healing journey because she understood her genetics, right? And she's doing that mold protocol with that provider, and she's going to get. Hopefully, she's going to get her life back. It's the way that she wants her life back. So, anyway, so it's a swab, simple at home, HIPAA compliant, password protected portal. After that, there's all kinds of videos to educate. Join for education, and you want to try the product. You'll see we are very transparent about all the science, your supplement fat panel, and all the ingredients of exactly what's going to be in there. As you say, if you are somebody with a medical condition working directly with a provider, you need to be concerned. Share the ingredient list with a provider and say, what do you think? As you said, a lot of PCPs aren't really familiar with nutrition. I just talked to a girl that just graduated with a degree in nutrition and never once did they bring up genetics in
Oh my gosh.
anything. And I was like, wow, because this is where we are going is personalized. We live in the day and age. Wouldn't you rather something made for you? And what SNP is bringing is something made for you at a price that you can afford it. You can stick with it and stay on it and be compliant with it. And it's very high quality. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
And if you are that person that you're really trying to get a handle on certain things, do blood work beforehand and start the product, and then do blood work like you did after. Whether it's standard and common blood work, are you tracking? Is it your A1C numbers? Is it your APO? Is it at apolipoprotein B? Is it your cholesterol? I mean, these are things that we get reported all the time by addressing genetics. A better outcome on that blood work.
Yeah. So this brings me to a question. I'm sure a lot of us listening and you, I'm sure, remember the 23andMe debacle, right? Like everyone's sending in their DNA and like, oh my God, the company got sold and I don't know where my data is and I'm trying to delete it. And it was like this whole mess, right? Like of like, what is going on with that? So how should someone think about privacy anytime DNA is involved? And what questions should they be asking before doing any genetic testing?
Well, I mean, are they just collecting your data to sell it? We are not doing that. Not only that, we're not doing full genome testing. I'm not looking for a rare disease that we can't do anything about. Okay. And I've tested probably with everybody out there, just, because I want to see what they deliver. And I got this, I did one test and I'm sitting here and I get all of this information and it says that you may have the propensity to have this rare disease. Well, why would I, one, want to scare myself about that? Two, what can I do about it? Nothing. And it's rare. So I'm going to go back to with this, we're looking at this through the lens of actionable genes where science is proven diet, nutrition, lifestyle, that epigenetic stuff, right? Can literally impact how those genes respond and how they function. So that's what we're looking at. And I think that, yeah, I don't want polygenic risk scores. I want to be told, I want a solution. I want a solution that is, and again, there are a lot of great companies that give you polygenic risk scores on all of these different things. But then they start lining up this, like you said, 20, 30, 40 jars, stacking all of this stuff. That's going to be a day of the past pretty soon. I want people to have the money in their pocket so they can say, hey, there's another thing I really would like to do. And now that they're not spending $500 a month on supplements, they can go do it, right?
Yeah.
They can do those other things because foundational health, I'm foundational. I'm not going to be the end all be all. And there isn't one magic bullet. There's not the silver bullet. So in looking at genetic companies, what can you do with the information that's provided to you? Can you easily, because there are some companies out there I've tested with as well. And I mean, it'll say you've got a variant and it'll say, what can you do about it? It'll say, no action steps are whatever. It won't give me any recommendations. I want recommendations of how, if this is an area that's of concern for me, I want to know what could I do to make it better?
Yeah.
Simply.
Yeah, which is great because I'm glad you just addressed that because there's, setting expectations is a huge thing, it's like, I was just going to ask you, like, what should someone not expect? Like, in other words, like, where are you trying to set the realistic expectations from day one? And we talked about that a little bit in the beginning, it's like, it's the marathon, not the sprint. And it's not something that will correct itself in month one, likely. I mean, that's why even you're encouraging me is like, make sure to get 4 months in before you even try a test because, it just takes a long time for the body to do that. So, I'm assuming that's the most reasonable expectation that you're trying to set from day one. Is there anything else that you're trying to get out there once people start taking this customized formula?
Well, okay. So the reason I say 4 months is that's a red blood cell cycle, right? If you test your blood, if you do blood work, that is, if you're ultimately, I mean, it's a snapshot of time. I know that there's some things that like A1C and certain cholesterol numbers that may change and fluctuate more within. But if that's what you're going to test, if you're going to do the standard and common blood work, then if you're going to do it like a Nutri-Eval, which is the uric acid test, right? Or not the uric acid, I'm sorry, the organic acids test to see that might show a little bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, what can people expect if they get on the customized? Everybody's different. And I mean, some people will say, is it possible that I feel better energy? Yeah, your body might be getting B vitamins in the right format and you're feeling this great energy. And then they'll go, oh, but I see green tea in there. Guess what? There's no caffeine in my product. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got green tea. We've got the green tea in there, but there's no traceable caffeine in it. So it's your body's getting the B vitamins. Where my husband, on the flip side, he doesn't quote unquote feel it. But what we track is we track his blood work, we track his PSA numbers, his cholesterol numbers, and things like that. And on the product consistently, we see the results there. So where one person may feel it, another one doesn't. But there's so many things. What's important to you? This is about the individual. What are you struggling with sleep? We hear it all the time. Improve sleep, and improve joint mobility, improve blood work, on multiple markers from inflammation to heart health markers, etc. So digestion. I
Yeah, that's a
mean,
big one.
and gut health. It's so important. And everybody's like, well, you don't have probiotics in it. And I'm like, no, we it's a totally different philosophy. We want to come in and grow the gut bacteria really healthy. So and and at this point, I don't take probiotics daily. I don't need them. I don't feel that I need them. If I had to do a round of antibiotics, would I do them? Yes. But nobody should take the same probiotic. You understand there's a cycling of probiotics. So it's a totally different philosophy, and we want to come in and support you at that cellular level so that
Yeah.
those genes can be optimized.
Yeah. And just like with probiotics, like I've stopped taking probiotics a long time and really have more focus on fermented foods, just kind of getting them in that way. And then also focusing on the prebiotic and postbiotic fibers, the substrate, the prebiotics can grow in, or not prebiotics, but the bacteria, right? The friendly bacteria, the bacteria we want. And then actually the only thing that I take as far as a probiotic, and again, I'm just testing this, but I've been taking an oral probiotic that I just put in my cheek every night, and just like for mouth bacteria that my dentist recommended. So I'm like, okay, I'll try that out and just see, so when I do my next dental checkup, we'll kind of see like what my mouth bacteria biome looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So Kim, where do you see personalized nutrition? So this is the future. I'm convinced of it. Pretty sure you're convinced of it too.
hmm
Where do you see this really personalized approach to nutrition and all kinds of medicine as well, really fitting into the next 5 years of preventative care and longevity care? Like, where do you see this going and the possibilities of it? And it could be a longer horizon. It could be a shorter time horizon. I just say, 5 years, but where do you see this going and fitting into that whole,
well,
subsector or sector of health?
well, as I can tell everybody, and I feel I say this from a very deep place in my heart. We've got so many people now are stepping into the biohacking, and they're trying this and they're trying that and they're doing this. I think first and foremost, we have to start with you, the individual. There's nobody else that's you, Brent. There's nobody else that's me, right? I mean, and you start to look at it and understand if we address people individually instead of, we had twins that swabbed with us, and their formulas were different, right? Okay.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Because they had some different genetic markers. So my point is, I think that ultimately, where is it going? This is Science is going to keep going, and we are going to continue to watch and take the studies. This is the future, is personalization. We just need to keep it available and affordable for the masses to be able to afford this. And then we can shift. I really believe we can shift the trajectory with people and with their health. And where do
Yeah.
I see it going? It's going to be in the mainstay one day. I mean, we are in the day and age. I mean, would you rather have a coat or a blazer that was made just for you because, you've got a little bit extra long arms, or would you rather, you know what I'm saying? I mean, who doesn't want something personalized over something off the shelf?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with the advent of the AI and being able to like do all the calculations and just, yeah, it's an exciting time. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. So one last question here that I'd like to ask all my guests: what do you hope that people remember from our conversation a week from now? What's like the bottom line that's like, hey, this is the one thing, the one key point to keep in mind.
I hope that people remember that crazy girl, Kim, was telling me that I'm in charge of my health and that I actually have a lot of power to do things about it if I want to. And we all have this. The body is meant to heal. The body is an amazing thing. And given the raw, proper nutrients, the body can do amazing things. So I hope people understand that personalization is coming. It's within reach. And it's here now. We're ahead of our time. The NIH says by 2030 it's going to be the gold standard. We just happen to be here. We happen to be here sooner. It's available. We just need to make it so that we recognize you out there. We recognize that where one person's dealing with one thing and the next, I recognize people as individuals. We're all so very uniquely different, which you need to take pride in that. Genetics aren't a scary thing. It's hey, yeah, this is what I can do about it. And if you are that person, this is what you should look at. But that's what I hope people remember is that personalization's here. It's easily accessible, and it's easy to implement with the way that we do it.
Yeah, and the future is here. It's
Yeah,
here right now.
And the future is it is. It's here. I mean, yeah.
So where can people learn more about you and follow your work, order some vitamins that are personalized for them? And we also talked just right before we hit the record button here about a $50 off Spanner coupon. So I think that's correct, right? That they could put in a coupon code that's Spanner, SPANNR, for $50 off of their first order, correct?
Yes. So they could go to the website. It's www.snipnutrition.com. And we whether it's the DNA test or you want to bundle it with the supplements, there's a starter plan or an optimal plan. You could purchase any of, and if they use the Spanner coupon, SPANNR, it'll give them $50 off their first order.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I forget what I did. Did I do the Optimum or the Basics plan? Or is that something new?
Sometimes people just want to try it for a month. Again, 1 month is not going to do, but they just want to try it for a month. So we give that option too. So if they just want to get their kit and their first month of their supplements, they can do that.
Okay. Because I did the recurring subscription. So that must be what that is. Okay.
And let's talk about really quick. One thing I have to say, that subscription is, we don't lock people in either. I want to go on the health journey with the people. So if they need to move it, we're totally like, move it, edit it, get extra, whatever. This is the long journey with our clients. So. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing we travel so much, I feel like, and that's kind of my next thing. I want to order an extra, so I'm a month ahead. Instead of a month behind, because actually sometime in February we were traveling. I was like, I'm almost out. And then it's like, we weren't at home and I know the shipment was there. So, it's getting an extra month ahead is probably a good idea, especially if you have a crazy lifestyle and travel.
I always keep an extra jar just in case, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Kim, this is great. Thanks for coming on. I really, really appreciate your time and helping everyone understand a little bit more about their personalized journey into health. And again, everyone, this is the Longevity Loop. You think I'd have enough coffee today. Thanks for listening. This is the Longevity Loop podcast. And if you like conversations that make longevity a little bit more practical and a little bit less confusing, which is what we try to do here by having guests on, such as Kim, to explain these things, and subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone that you think would get some benefit out of that. And also, we have an awesome newsletter that goes out every week on spanner.com. So you can go sign up for that, SPANNR.com. And again, just reminder, this was education only, not medical advice. I'm not a doctor and I don't even pretend to be one. Just a podcast to just educate yourselves so you can go out and do your own research. So with that said, let's sign off. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett.
This is the Longevity Loop podcast.